Okay, so I actually want to do something completely different today, and I want to talk to you people who don't knit or crochet for a minute. So let's say you have a friend who loves you very much and is willing to knit something for you, something that you want, but you want to choose the yarn. When I am talking to my friends who are not knitters, or when I get a request through my Etsy shop from somebody who's not a knitter and doesn't understand how yarn works, the prospect of choosing yarn for a project that they're going to have somebody else knit for them can be extremely daunting. So what I want to do today is I'm going to show you a bunch of different yarn and just give you some examples of different things you should be looking for when you decide you want to buy the yarn for the project. So there are two main things that come into play with each project, skipping over the idea of color, because color is so personal and so subjective that I'm just gonna skip right over that. Choose whatever colors you like. I personally like a lot of earth tones, so I do a lot of like these kind of colors, a lot of this, but that's really personal. That really depends on you. But the two things you want to ask the knitter are going to be, or crocheter, are going to be about the weight and the fiber. So we're going to start by talking about the weight. So the weight of the yarn is all about how thick the yarn is. So these are worsted weight yarns, which are your basic, anytime you go into a big box store, anytime you're in a Target, a Walmart, a Michael's, a Joann's, you're going to see the majority of the yarns are going to be this worsted weight yarn. And these three are acrylic. We'll talk about that in a minute. Worsted weight yarns are fantastic for things like hats, mittens, scarves, sometimes sweaters if you want a heavier sweater, all kinds of different things. But so on a lot of your store-bought brands, you're going to see something like this where it says the weight of the yarn, medium 4. I personally have a rule of no yarn left behind, which means I will find a purpose for any yarn that is gifted to me, no matter what. Some knitters really will only use a specific weight of yarn or a specific fiber. I'm not one of those, but it's important to know that. Worsted weight is the middle size and the most common size. The next most common size of yarn is going to be your fingering weight yarn. So these are three different, well, this is the same as this. So these are three different fingering weight yarns. This one is by Old Crow Art Yarns. It's an indie dyer on Etsy who I adore. This is a Huntington Valley yarn, so I got that from yarn.com. This one was a gift from a friend, Claudia Hand Painted Yarns. Haven't knit with it yet, but I love the color of it. This yarn is really popular for socks, gloves, scarves, shawls, anything that needs to be a little bit thinner. I personally really like a fingering weight yarn for hats. Another yarn you'll see a lot at stores, and this gets into the biggest size, is going to be your chunky yarns. These chunky yarns are great for blankets. A really chunky hat. You can also get into your funky yarns. I personally am not a fan of working with these, as is evidenced by the fact that this has been sitting in my stash for years. Eventually, what will likely happen is my sister will want to do a project for our Fiber Havens Mavens shop, and I'll end up gifting that to her. And the final two sizes I want to talk about, these are probably the least common in the majority of projects, but this is actually one of my favorite sizes to work in, is the DK or sport weight yarn. So again, if you look at the little label there, remember the worsted weight said a 4 on it. This one says a 3, so it's lightweight. These are great for like a lightweight spring sweater for a baby, that sort of thing. And then this is a lace weight yarn. I don't have a label for this. I bought it secondhand off of Etsy forever ago. This is what I used for my maple leaf shawl, and I actually held it double for that because the pattern actually called for a fingering weight, but I really loved the color of this. You're doing very delicate work with this. So if you have a knitter in your life who has said, sure, I'll make that for you in a lace weight yarn, first of all, you owe that knitter a cheesecake. And second of all, you probably owe them your firstborn child, because it's extremely difficult to work with, but it is lovely. It comes out really lightweight and beautiful. The two most common fibers are going to be wool and acrylic. There's also, I mean, there's endless numbers of fibers. You can get yarn made out of bamboo, you can get yarn made out of old plastic bags, you can get yarn made out of alpaca, nylon. This one I think is nylon. Yeah, nylon and acrylic mix. I mean, it's endless. Cotton, of course. It's endless what you can get yarn made out of. But the most common fibers are going to be wool and acrylic. Your acrylic yarn is going to run at a much lower price than your wool yarn. Cotton is really absorbent. It's really easy to clean. It's a great one for dishcloths, hand towels, that sort of thing. When I want to make something really nice, I make it out of wool. my maple leaf shawl that I said I made out of acrylic. I actually did that because the acrylic isn't quite as warm as the wool, and I wanted to be able to wear that shawl further into the summer. The most common thing people ask from a knitter is socks, which I actually am really particular about who I will knit socks for. If I'm knitting you a pair of socks, if you've asked me for a pair of socks and I'm actually knitting them for you, you should know that that comes with an extreme amount of love. First, you're determining your weight size. You could do socks in a DK weight. I actually bought this for a pair of yoga socks for myself, but you could do socks in a DK weight, sport weight, worsted weight. The most common weight though is going to be the fingering weight. And then the second thing to look at is the fiber. So this is also a pair of socks, or intended to be a pair of socks. So 75% wool, 25% nylon. That nylon count for me is extremely important when I'm knitting socks, because if you do a pair of socks in a yarn that has absolutely no give to it, no stretch to it, it's going to be really hard to pull those socks onto your foot. Your foot is oddly shaped. Your socks are not exactly shaped for your foot all the time because every foot is different and it would be impossible. So you need that extra nylon to give it a little bit of stretch. Your foot also moves and wiggles as you walk, and you need that extra stretch in there. So that is my super fast what you need to know about yarn if you don't knit or crochet lesson for you. To boil it down, it comes down to two things. Whatever the project is that you're doing, you want to ask the person creating it for you, what weight yarn do I need and what fiber should it be made out of? I hope that helps, and I hope that you are able to create a great relationship with the knitter or crocheter in your life. Have a great day, and don't forget to craft outside the circle.